Welcome to Brainstorm 9000.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to another episode of Brainstorm 9000.
So we are not greeting the brains of the internet anymore, Master McMaster. That's the name of a person you just heard.
Well, see, Earthlings is a large category of
Right.
people. And of Earthlings, there's a subset that would fit in the category brains of the internet. So I'm by default addressing the brains of the internet.
I see. By the way, the brains. My name is Dr. Schultz, and I'm here in our little studio together with Jane McMaster, who we lovingly call Master McMaster because she has master's degree in philosophy.
Master McMaster.
Yes, you know, this morning, I had an MRI of the head done.
Oh, uh-huh.
It turns out there is a brain somewhere there inside of my head.
Really? That's great news. Congrats.
Good. So I'm also one of the brains of the internet, apparently.
Yes.
And my brain needs stuff.
Yes, and today on Brainstorm 9000, we're going to talk about that stuff. This is a topic that I have long been curious about, partly because it's so big right now, and partly because I'm too lazy to do all the research, so I want to hear from the expert. Today we're talking about nootropic supplements.
Yes. So what makes me the expert? A couple of things. A, I have a brain for which I take supplements. So I have personal experience. I'll start from talking about what I take. I'm not going to hide it. Another thing is that I'm a founding diplomat of the American Holistic Medical Association, so I'm into all this stuff. And actually, I went in my life before I became a part of this association from completely denying the vitamins and supplements a proper place in my life. And then I was convinced that it's a good idea. I actually, during the training session before the board exam, asked one of the very prominent presenters. I said, Dr. Such and Such, so we are in the United States, we eat well. What do we need vitamins and supplements for? And he told me, Dr. Schultz, if you were a farm boy and you were eating natural organic food, had absolutely no stress of the city and no pollution, I would agree with you.
You just answered my first question.
Yes, but you ought to be able to ward off all the aggressive events in your life that actually disturb a normal functioning of your body. And that, of course, applies to the brain. We live in a very stressful world, and it has become more and more stressful almost overnight. As far as I'm concerned, and we all know, I'm our residential time machine.
Yes, you are.
Because I'm 63 years old.
We all know.
Well, except for people who are listening to us the first time. So nootropics are natural supplements or drugs that have a beneficial effect on the brain function in, I need to make it clear, healthy people.
Oh.
So nootropics are for people who are healthy, or at least allegedly healthy. Because the question always is, who is normal and who is not? I'm just kidding. And who is healthy and who is not? I don't know.
Wait, so does this sense of healthy, does that mean like you're physically healthy or
emotionally,
you're
mentally.
Okay.
So it means that you don't have any identifiable issues and you just want to take stuff for your brain to feed it better and to preserve it.
What if you have an identifiable issue, but you're treating it?
So you are taking supplements, you basically are using different things as medicine, and we'll talk about it.
All right,
too.
I just want to make sure that this applies to me because I want to take supplements to boost my brain.
If you need to. So one of the things I would like to say, and I want to make it very clear, painfully clear, that most of the research, an overwhelming number of papers that are published, is done mostly in rats, and rats are mammals, and they do have brains, but their life and their stressors and their food supply, especially lab rats, is very different from humans. And a large number of studies are very poorly designed. And it's not because people who did them or have been doing them or are going to do them don't know what to do. It's just the funding is incompatible with the funding provided by the pharma and funding provided by the NIH, National Institute of Health, for, in quotes, conventional, unquote, studies.
Is this why on the bottles of all supplements it says Asterisk. These claims have not been evaluated by the FDA.
Well, FDA is a totally different story. FDA is Federal Drug Administration, which does not regulate most of the supplements we take. So it's not even close, because pulling a drug through the FDA would cost pharma quite a few million, probably sometimes $1 billion, and it's very expensive. So going back to the matter of our discussion, some of the claims are made exclusively about people who had some kind of an issue and then decided to take a medication, a supplement, a nootropic, and some are not. They are very difficult to figure out. So I'll start from talking about what I take myself, which I find extremely beneficial.
Yes, I'm very curious to hear
I
this.
first was introduced to a need to take fish oil in a very bizarre way. I was working in Connecticut, meaning I had to commute every day in nursing homes. It was a very disturbing kind of activity, especially considering that my father was aging rapidly at the same time. And I worked quite a bit, long hours, and drove. And one day I was basically feeling wiped out, and I was driving and decided that I need to eat. And for some reason, I felt like I'm craving fish and bought a can of sardines and ate it. And for the reason that I don't know whether it was real or I just enjoyed eating the sardines, I felt a significant boost and felt significantly more mentally energized and even, I should say, happier.
Really?
So I decided to do some research and look into what's going on. And it turned out that sardines provided me with, naturally, fish oil.
Yeah, and also, don't they contain like omega-3 fatty acids?
Of course, fish oils contain omega-3. Actually, fish oils are a rich source of DHA, which stands for docosahexaenoic acid.
That's a big word.
Don't try to repeat it. And eicosapentaenoic acid, which is called EPA. These two are two different types of omega-3, and the first one, DHA, plays the most important vital role, and it accounts for about 25% of the total fat and 90% of omega-3 fat. So it's very important, and unless you eat large quantities of fatty fish, I'll just give you an example, sardines or salmon, you need to take the supplements. Omega-3 comes in two types. Let's say regular omega-3, made out of fish, and vegan omega-3, made out of algae.
Question for you.
Right.
Is there a difference between getting fish oils through just like eating a bunch of fish or taking the supplements?
No, absolutely not. It would be probably very good to eat fish, but Eskimos, people who live very far north, eat a lot of fish. Most of the people in New York City don't eat enough fish.
No.
Yeah. So you take supplementation mostly because it's impossible for you to draw out all the benefits. And we'll talk about it more when we talk about turmeric, for example.
Oh, yes.
So there is an evidence that omega-3 preserves brain in many ways, and it's very beneficial. Of course, the evidence is very mixed, because I told you the studies are poorly designed, very difficult to compare to each other. But I can tell you firsthand that when I take fish oil, and I take it every day, I do see the difference. I'm more productive. I work longer hours.
Is there a difference between before you take it in the morning and then after?
No, there's no difference because I take it all the time. But I feel good on it, and I think it's a good idea to take it. Another thing that I do utilize is caffeine.
Well, I utilize that too. I'm glad to hear this is on the list.
Right. So I drink coffee in limited amounts, usually a cup a day, sometimes two, but I also drink a lot of tea. Russians drink more tea than vodka, for people who didn't know it. And of course, both contain large amounts of caffeine. For most people, a single dose of coffee, for example, contains about 200 milligrams of caffeine, varies from 50 to 400 depending on how you make your coffee and what kind of coffee you use. And it's stimulating and makes people feel less tired, improve concentrations. I can tell you that I have at least one patient in my practice who, as a child, was diagnosed with ADHD properly after being tested for hours. But the parents didn't feel good about giving drugs, so the doctor advised him to drink either large amounts of tea or coffee.
Really?
And he became very successful, and usually before going to work, until we met, drank up to half a gallon of tea, and then another half of gallon during the day, but then heard about stimulant medications and is now being prescribed, but still drinks tea every now and then. And
That's so interesting.
Right. So there are some people who are able to draw benefits. Of course, periodically we read that coffee is good for you, then we read that it's bad for you. Recently, there was a large article published discouraging people from drinking coffee first thing in the morning.
When I was a kid, everyone thought that if you drink caffeine, it would stunt your growth.
Right. I can tell you that I don't have a personal opinion about it, but I know for sure that in some cultures, such as Italy, traditional culture, or Armenia, and probably Turkey, and probably Greece, people start the day from drinking essentially espresso, and that's how their day begins. I'll never forget sitting in an Italian restaurant in Italy and liking very much a waiter who was serving amazing freshly caught fish. And I told him, so you must be so lucky, you probably eat fish for breakfast. And his answer was, no, I have a cup of espresso and that's it until lunch.
Oh.
So we can argue that people get used to it, blah, 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 but what I'm saying is only one thing and one thing only, that in many, many cultures, people do use coffee and seem to be in a pretty good shape. I have experience also with another supplement, which is called Rhodiola rosea. It's a part of Chinese medicine and also grows in Siberia. It's one of the adaptogens, meaning helps people to sustain stress better.
This is a word that I've seen a lot, especially on the labels of these like
Adaptogens?
power supplement. Yeah, adaptogens.
So the history of adaptogens actually has to do with my accent. In the 50s, people discovered that a lot of Russian athletes suddenly started winning a lot of competitions that they haven't won ever. And it was especially weird because Russia went through a pretty severe experience during World War II, which ended in 1945 for people who don't know history that well. And it was basically a pretty much weaker country after that in many ways. And people started looking, and it turned out that in 1947, a prominent Russian, scientist from Siberia published the first article in Russian in which he called substances that occur naturally and allow people to sustain stress adaptogens. And it caught up. Yeah, so adaptogens are naturally occurring substances that allow people to sustain stress. So let's talk about them because it's very timely. So rhodiola is one of them. The most famous one probably is ginseng. And another one that I highly recommend and prescribe to, I mean, I don't prescribe it, I recommend people to take it, is called ashwagandha. One of the important things to remember is that ashwagandha has been around for thousands of years. Ayurvedic medicine is a few thousand years old. So together with rhodiola, ashwagandha is a very, very important adaptogen.
And it has such a cool name.
Well, it's from India. So it's been a part of Ayurvedic, one of the three ancient medicines that still do exist on Earth. So one of them is Ayurvedic medicine, another one is Chinese, and the third one is Tibetan medicine. They are thousands of years old, and people who practice it are very experienced. So ashwagandha is used in our modern society by people like you and me from the West in a form of capsules, and we take them for a few reasons. Ashwagandha decreases cortisol levels. So Cortisol goes up in cases of stress and sometimes can stay up, which is not a good idea. And studies have shown that ashwagandha does reduce cortisol levels, which is very beneficial.
Okay, so it helps you to de-stress.
Right. In one of the studies in chronically stressed adults, those who supplemented with ashwagandha had significantly greater reduction in cortisol compared to the control group. So it was relatively good studies. Those taking the highest dose had a 30% reduction. And I'm going to say right away that intentionally, I'm not going to discuss in what doses to take supplements, because I'm not intending on giving you medical advice over the internet. And feel free to do your own, in quotes, research, meaning reading a lot of useless material on the internet, or you can come and talk to a professional. Doesn't have to be me.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is ashwagandha naturally occurring in any foods that we might normally
No,
eat?
ashwagandha is an herb. So it's not a part of the food. It's a plant.
But it's not an herb that we would normally encounter in our food, right? That's why it's more common to take it in a capsule?
Well, you cannot possibly put a sufficient amount of anything, including turmeric, that we are going to discuss probably next, in your food that it would affect you. So that's why people take them in a form of supplements. So ashwagandha is an herbal medicine. It's herbal medicine. It's an herb that is taken intentionally, separately, basically for medicinal purposes. It also helps to deal with anxiety, insomnia. It may reduce symptoms of depression, and it's been shown to improve brain function, including memory.
Interesting.
What's interesting that ashwagandha is safe for most of the people and is easily available. When I speak to my clients, I recommend a particular brand because it's very well researched, but there are many, many brands, and I would leave this kind of interaction for you to have with a professional that you choose to consult with. Another thing that I take every day is called NAC. Can you say it properly?
NAC?
Yes. So it stands for N-acetylcysteine. Cysteine actually is what is called a semi-essential amino acid. So let me explain to people who don't know what is what. So non-essential amino acids are amino acids that are easily produced by ourselves, meaning our body makes them out of food. Semi-essentials, because our body can produce it from other amino acids, but only if we take enough in our diet, methionine and serine, which are other amino acids. So it's semi-essential because if you stop eating certain things, then your body cannot make it. So cysteine is found in high-protein foods: chicken, turkey, yogurt, cheese, eggs, sunflower seeds, and my favorite word in English, legumes.
Legumes. So your favorite word in English comes from French?
Of course. But again, just to answer the question that you previously asked, yes, it is contained in food, but you cannot eat enough of it to feel an effect that you need.
Okay. So one thing that I wondered about supplements is it kind of like the theory of like SSRIs, for example, where they're good for you and they have a positive effect on you because they're replenishing something that you didn't have enough of? And from what you're saying so far about these supplements, it seems like it's more like these supplements can unlock, the creation of more like neurochemicals or stress hormones.
The question is whether or not, once the brain is damaged by all the stress from the outside, it might need an additional set of tools to deal. And it's presumed that the supplements that we are talking about provide this additional support. What is the exact mechanism by which they work? Sometimes there is a hypothesis, like for example for NAC that I'm about to discuss. And in some cases, it's not known, like for ashwagandha. People have no idea why it works.
But that one's the one that's theorized that it affects cortisol, right?
Among other things, it decreases cortisol if it's high. But if it's normal, it's not going to do anything to it.
Right.
So it's an adaptogen. Once things go out of sync, out of order, it helps to normalize them. NEC, N-acetylcysteine, is most known as a very valuable antioxidant
I hear this word a lot.
because it helps to make the most probably powerful antioxidant in our body, which is called glutathione. So because it has such a powerful effect on antioxidant production, it's a very valuable tool in the modern world where it is an issue. Oxidation and antioxidation are things that we have to deal with almost every single day because of the stress that we have from all the chemicals. It's been also shown that it can help regulate the levels of glutamate, which is one of the most important neurotransmitters in the brain. So glutamate is required for normal brain function, but excess of glutamate paired with glutathione depletion, remember glutathione is the antioxidant, so too much glutamate, not enough antioxidation can actually cause brain damage. So NEC helps to even out this equation and helps us to preserve our brain. It's been shown also recently that for people with bipolar disorder and unipolar depression, NEC may help decrease symptoms and improve their overall ability to function. How does it do it remains to be seen. And in animal studies, people try to imply that NEC can also help with some symptoms of schizophrenia. I personally have a lot of reservations about studies like that because it's very difficult to mimic schizophrenia in animals. So they use certain animal models, but I'm not sure how accurate they are.
I've heard that NEC is really good for anxiety.
Well, it's very good for helping to supply brain with what it needs in order to be able to deal with various issues, but it's not an anti-anxiety substance that people who have anxiety can benefit directly from. But I would recommend people to consider taking NEC, especially people who have high level of stress and intellectually are very active. So we know that NEC may improve brain health, but of course we need more research. For example, in order to be able to support what you said, if it's accurate, studies utilized a very large amount of NEC, up to 4,800 milligrams. I take significantly less and have no direct recommendations. So I looked up a couple of studies, and one of the studies is called The Effect of NEC on Human Cognition, a systematic review, which is actually not a study. Scientists just reviewed all the articles that have been published that are valuable. And there is some evidence that is beneficial in preventing people from developing Alzheimer's disease. There is an evidence that it's good for healthy people to maintain a high level of functioning. It's helpful in bipolar disorder, and also can be helpful in ketamine-induced psychosis. You know, ketamine now is becoming big as a possible medication for depression, but people also abuse ketamine on the street. So that concludes the list of supplements I take.
Okay, what about all these other magical supplements? Turmeric seems to be super trendy right now. Every coffee shop advertises a turmeric latte. It's so trending right now. What does it do, and does it actually work?
So turmeric, Turmeric, is one of the components of at least Indian food that I eat quite a bit.
Yes, I've used it before.
And it contains a very powerful bioactive compound with a list of very powerful medicinal properties. Turmeric is the spice that gives curry its yellow color. And it has been used in India for thousands of years, both as a spice, and I make Indian food, so I can testify.
Yes, I have. I can testify to this too. And that shit stains. It's hard to get out.
Yes, and also as a medicinal herb, so it's an herb. The most interesting medicinal compound is called curcumin. Curcumin. So how would you say it?
Curcumin?
Yeah. It's the main active ingredient of turmeric. But if you tried to eat a lot of turmeric in order to get a benefit of curcumin, you need to remember that curcumin is only 3% by weight of turmeric. And if you take pure curcumin, it's not going to be absorbed very easily. So one needs to consume black pepper together with it, because black pepper improves the ability of substance to be absorbed by, I'm not going to make a mistake right now, 2,000%. So if you decided that you want to take curcumin, please check the label and make sure that the supplements you're about to take contains some form of pepper, because otherwise you might wind up taking large amounts of curcumin without all the health benefits.
Okay, so all those stuff, like when it says like, oh, turmeric this and turmeric that, it's really, what it really means is that it has this curcumin.
Yeah, and you need to make sure that it has a sufficient amount.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you are old enough to remember that we were told back in the day that neurons never recover. Remember?
Oh, yeah, that when they die, they don't grow back?
Yes. So, of course, as many things, it's not true. And neuroplasticity does exist. Neuroplasticity refers to the process by which neuronal tissue recovers itself. And there is this thing which is called brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is something that brain makes. BDNF is an abbreviation.
Okay.
In order to help itself to recover, for the cells to multiply and increase in number. And curcumin boosts this substance, meaning it increases its content in the brain.
Okay. Can you translate that into English for us?
So the brain self-regulates and produces a substance that stimulates the growth of neurons.
And why is that important for us?
Because neurons die, and we need to have more and more, right? Because otherwise we won't have enough brain cells.
Right, because the more neurons we have, the more like connections we have, which is basically what learning is, right?
Well, we need to have at least the amount that is sufficient for us to function. And it's presumed, again, no direct studies have been done, that stress, both emotional and chemical, environmental in many ways, kills off a larger amount of neurons that would die otherwise. Like, for example, 100 years ago, not as many neurons would die.
I've also heard that one of my favorite activities kills neurons, drinking alcohol.
Probably. And we also need to remember that while you are very far removed from facing a possibility of Alzheimer, I'm closer. And in Alzheimer's dementia, one of the terrible things that happen, neurons die. So by boosting brain-derived neurotropic factor, we would hope, we can delay or prevent dementia from happening.
Wow.
Again, not too many studies that can convince us that it's true, but at least it's a presumption.
Yeah, that would be a hard one to prove, right? Because then you can't diagnose Alzheimer's until you've done an autopsy.
Yeah.
Is there a specific word for autopsy for the brain?
Not that I know of. Autopsy of the brain, I guess. So one of the key features of Alzheimer's is a buildup of protein tangles, which are called amyloid plaques. So again, some research shows that curcumin can slow it down and even help to clear these plaques.
Wow.
Whether curcumin can really slow down or even reverse the progression of Alzheimer's disease in people is currently unknown, because most of the studies, if not all the studies, naturally are done in animal models.
Right.
So I would dare to say that it could be that curcumin is, if not the most effective nutritional supplement in existence, it's one of the most effective. And the majority of high-quality studies that, by the way, do exist for turmeric and curcumin show that they are very effective. I even found at least one study that shows efficacy of curcumin in major depressive disorder. And it was a randomized placebo-controlled study.
I was just going to say, I have a friend who likes to mix turmeric with soda water, and she calls it her, like, antidepressant cocktail. Because she said it, like, boosts her mood and stuff.
So one of the small studies, actually, had different groups of people. One group took Prozac, another group 1 gram of curcumin, and the third took Prozac and curcumin together. So in 6 weeks, curcumin led to improvements that were similar to Prozac.
Interesting.
And actually the group that took them together, Prozac and curcumin, fared the best.
Really?
Yeah.
I've got to start consuming this stuff.
Yes.
I talked about how turmeric lattes are all the rage.
Right.
Is the best way to consume this by finding one of those supplements that has the pepper in it? Or can turmeric lattes change your mood?
No. I mean, turmeric latte probably can change your mood because it tastes good.
Yes, it has a very distinct taste.
Yes, and if you like the taste, it's a good idea. And also, of course, the placebo effect that has been thrown upon by many people, of course, does exist. I personally don't see anything wrong with feeling better, even if it's placebo. I mean, placebo is benign, right?
Yeah, because so if you're taking like curcumin supplements every day, for example, and even if it's not actually physically doing anything, if you feel better because you think it's doing something, why not? Because it's not hurting you.
Definitely not. But I'm probably going to repeat it a few more times during this program. I highly recommend for people to take the time and talk to somebody who is not just their friend and not a web page, but somebody who gives people such an advice on a consistent basis.
But I love talking to my web page. It's where I get most of my information. So one that I've heard a lot about that I have no idea what it is. Ginkgo biloba?
So ginkgo biloba is an interesting ancient tree.
A tree?
Yes. It was found in fossils dating back as far as 270 million years.
For our audience, I'm not playing dumb. I've just been too lazy to research this. I really didn't know it was a tree.
Yeah, so it's actually native to China, but it's widely cultivated. And I saw pictures of people standing under ginkgo biloba tree in Belgium, out of all the places. There is a theory that the genus name ginkgo is a misspelling of the Japanese ginkyo, which means silver apricot. In Chinese books, it was described actually many, many years ago. One of them is Shaoxing Benkao, which is a book on Chinese herbalism and pharmacology, which was published during Song period from 960 to 1279.
That was a very long time ago.
And then there is another, Materia Medica of Chinese herbology, written by Li Xinzhen, during the Ming Dynasty. Of course, it's very meaningful to people who know Chinese history. I'm not one of them. And it dates as far back as 1578. I can almost guarantee you that even before Christ, Chinese already knew about this herb, this tree. So it's a very popular supplement right now, and a lot of people take it to boost their brain power.
Yes.
So the idea is that it works by increasing blood flow to the brain, and also there have been claims made that it improves focus and memory.
Do you think that it's possible that like improved focus and improved memory could be a result of increased blood flow?
Have no idea. I mean, it's possible, like for example, if there is more blood flowing to the muscle, and if you exercise it, hopefully it gets
No,
larger.
of course we don't know the exact mechanism, but it stands to reason that one could follow from the other.
Of course. It also might have a direct effect on brain cells. We don't know it yet. So there is a widespread use of ginkgo biloba, But actually, results from the studies that investigated its effect have been, as I said many times before, mixed, which means that some of the studies are better designed than others.
Right.
And because a lot of studies are conducted not in humans, who knows, but some studies actually have found that taking ginkgo biloba supplements can help reduce age-related decline in brain function, meaning the brain doesn't age as rapidly.
Interesting. Gosh, I really need to start taking some of these. Do you take that one?
No. And I can tell you why. I have hypertension, and there have been studies in people who are older than me that show that taking large amounts of ginkgo biloba might increase the likelihood of strokes.
Another reason why people shouldn't just take all these things blindly.
Sure, and I have a family history. At least my grandmother on my mother's side had a stroke and died from it. And my mother had a mini stroke, whatever that means. So I don't want to go there.
Okay, I have another one. And this is one that I've seen a lot, and it's so bizarre to me.
Right.
Celery juice?
Yes. So, of course, you gave me a list of these things before, and I looked into it because I was completely blown away. And it turns out that it's actually being a very popular thing, specifically on the Instagram.
Yes, it's very hashtag trending.
Right. So they say that it can help with high blood pressure, inflammation, and gut health. Of course, if somebody can control their high blood pressure, it's good for the brain. Mm-hmm. If gut health is good, now everybody knows that the gut helps us to keep our brain in a better shape.
Right.
But that's as far as I was able to find out why it's good for you. So it's a very trendy thing right now. Of course, the recommendation is to drink freshly squeezed celery juice on the empty stomach in the morning. I wouldn't argue that it's a bad idea.
I wonder if they sell that at Whole Foods. You know, they used to sell asparagus water, but then they got sued. I bet they sell celery juice.
I have no idea. And since I'm a big fan of a very famous, at least in Russia, American author O. Henry, who spoke quite a bit in a very humorous way about people who sold snake venom.
Right. Or snake oil salesmen.
Right. So, it's not going to hurt you, but I cannot claim that I know that it can improve somebody's brain functioning.
Okay. I don't know. Should I try all of these? Since the studies aren't there, and since we don't really know if it works, should I just be taking all of these to improve, see what, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks?
Meaning what all of the supplements that I've discussed so far?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you and the brains of the internet that actually there are probably hundreds and hundreds of others. And also there are mixtures of all of the above plus that claim that they are a universal thing. Do you know of any of them?
So I've seen some of these before.
Right.
I've seen them on Amazon and on Sephora of all places. So the one from Sephora is, I can't believe they sell this shit at Sephora, but it's called Brain Dust.
Brain Dust, 2 words?
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to Google it. Brain Dust.
By Moon Juice.
Moon Juice. So it has 227 ratings. And here's the picture with the content. Oh, a very cute container. So what does it contain?
Very good branding.
Yeah, let's see whether we can find any names that we heard in the list. So
wait, can I read what it claims to do so far?
Right.
So this is what it claims to do. And it uses this term that I find so hilarious, edible intelligence, which is already, what a loaded term. Okay,
Right.
So this is what Brain Dust claims to do. Brain Dust is an adaptogenic blend of enlightening super herbs and super mushrooms that help combat the effects of stress to align you with the cosmic flow for great achievement. And it claims to help enhance focus and mental stamina, promote mental clarity and concentration, promote a positive mind and mood, and help alleviate the effects of stress and tension. So basically, like everything you'd ever want in life.
Right. So let's see what it contains. Can you read the content?
Yes. Okay. So Brain Dust has the copyrighted brain dust proprietary blend, which the first ingredient is organic lion's mane mushroom extract.
Yes, it's one of the popular mushrooms that is claimed to improve everything there is in the world, including brain activity, being an antioxidant, and what have you.
Is that like legit?
Legit, yes.
Okay, so far so good. We have organic maca root extract.
Okay, so maca is claimed to help, among other things, concentration.
Okay, what about organic astragalus root extract?
Well, astragalus, everybody knows, it can be helpful.
I don't know about it.
Astragalus is one of the things that can be helpful for almost anything.
What is it?
Astragalus is one of the herbal remedies.
Okay. So then we have rhodiola root extract, which we talked about.
We talked about.
Organic ashwagandha root, which we talked about.
Yes.
Ginkgo leaf extract, which we talked about.
Yes.
And then organic stevia leaf extract. I'm guessing that's for flavor.
Yeah, well, stevia is a naturally occurring herb in South America that is sweet. So it makes it sweet.
Mm-hmm.
The dust tastes good. So one could come up with a very large number of concoctions that have all the components that we did or didn't discuss.
Yeah.
That have a potential benefit. And then one of the arguments is that the cumulative effect, meaning the effect of these things together, could be significantly larger than each one of them taken separately.
Right. So that's why this stuff is supposed to help you align yourself with the cosmic flow.
Right. But I can almost guarantee you that no controlled studies have been done on this thing. And I don't know how beneficial it is. I would like to tell people that, of course, if you find yourself arguing whether or not you need to take medication, and on the other hand, take quite a few capsules of different supplements every day, you might stop and think to yourself, so if you don't want to be dependent on medication, how come you are taking such an enormous amount of supplements?
So do you think that this stuff could actually work, though?
Well, it might work, but we don't actually know what it does. So I would actually recommend people who are healthy just to stick to a couple of things that are known to help with the stress. So adaptogens, and my favorite adaptogen that I recommend to everybody nowadays is ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not a bad idea to take curcumin probably, and meth.
Right.
And everything else is up to you.
Okay, so there's another one of these trendy cocktails on Amazon that I've seen before. I think I sent you a link to this because it seems too good to be true.
Right.
Okay, so this one is called Genius Consciousness.
So just for fun, let's read the ingredients.
Wait, first I want to read what it purports to do. Unlock higher consciousness, motivation, clarity, awareness, purpose, and focus. Combination of all the strongest, all-natural, brain-enhancing ingredients brought together in an all-in-one great-tasting daily drink for high-performance thinking. Okay, so let's look at the ingredients that we have here. Here we go. It has a lot of ingredients, but the first one is acetyl L-carnitine.
So acetyl L-carnitine is a legitimate substance. It is an amino acid produced naturally in your body, and it plays an important role in your metabolism, particularly in energy production. So it's been claimed that taking it makes you feel more alert, improves your memory, and slows age-related memory loss.
That's a pretty big claim. All of these are pretty big claims.
Of course. There have been some animal studies that have shown that this supplement can prevent age-related decline in brain function and increase learning capacities in rats, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's a good thing.
Okay.
Right. What else is there?
We have the lion's mane again.
Which we already spoke about.
L-tyrosine.
So L-tyrosine is also a naturally occurring substance, and our brain makes a lot of important things out of it, but the question always is, does it or doesn't it get to the brain? when
Right.
you consume it? And I don't know the answer to
Yeah,
that.
and we talked about this before when we were talking about in our psychopharmacology episode and our fear of taking medications episode. And I think we talked about it in our dieting episode.
Right.
So we talked about this, how, you can take a supplement, but that doesn't mean that it's actually going to get to your brain. Your body might digest it, but then by the time it, gets filtered and gets into your bloodstream and gets to your brain, it may or may not actually get into the brain. And if it does, your brain might not actually do anything with it.
Like if curcumin was able to get to the brain, our brains all would be yellow,
Yeah.
like curry. But it's not the case.
Should
right?
I take this stuff and inject it directly into my brain?
Of course. Feel free.
Okay, so L-tyrosine we feel good about?
Yeah.
So all of these magic supplements, like the brain dust, all this edible intelligence, genius consciousness, genius mushrooms, all these fancy compounds with all these supplements in them, sound like way too good to be true. Do you think they're legitimate? Would you recommend them?
Well, I would never recommend them for a very simple reason. I don't know what they do and don't do, not only to the brain, but to the rest of the body. I cannot provide my clients, and certainly I have no intention to provide our listeners with any advice like that, but to my clients, I wouldn't be able even to say on what schedule to take them. And I would like to offer to you a very simple idea that nothing that you swallow goes unnoticed by our body.
Right.
Even a food item has a profound effect. So you can say, for example, and I'm not trying to be funny, that if somebody ate pizza and felt happy because of the taste or whatever,
Pizza has brain boosting effects.
so it had a brain boosting effect on them. But what is the long-term effect of eating 2 or 3 slices of pizza every single day for a particular person in a particular situation? I have no idea. So, of course, because it's fashionable and very poorly regulated, people come up with all different kinds of mixtures. But I want to tell you that reputable companies that produce supplements don't do this kind of stuff.
Right. And I'm, partly tempted to take these because they sound like they'll just make your life so much better. But I also think personally, just from looking at these, it seems so manipulative, and it seems to kind of feed the idea that, there's a way to make yourself better and to make your life better without actually trying. Like, you don't have to try to concentrate and focus. You can take a pill and it'll make you concentrate and focus.
Well, I don't know that people can force themselves to concentrate better. People who have attention and concentration problems and have been diagnosed with ADHD, if they feel that they need help, they need to get structured professional help. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to go and get Adderall prescribed no matter what. But you need to see somebody who specializes in diagnosing and treating this kind of issues, who can talk to you and give you options that you can process and understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you before you start putting it into your body. If somebody is depressed, a lot of people are tempted to look for an alternative to, in quotes, Prozac, which has become a generic name for an antidepressant, and let's say try to take St. John's wort.
Ah, yes. What is St. John's wort?
Well, it's a plant, very popular one.
Didn't you mention in one of our previous episodes that some homeopath had prescribed St. John's wort for schizophrenia?
No, a homeopath would never do anything like that. It was a layperson pretending to be an herbalist. And the case was that a young gentleman with the first break of schizophrenia was taken away by his parents during a hospitalization for like a family time, and instead of doing anything else, they went to see somebody, a random person, who suggested the use of St. John's wort for schizophrenia. It would be similar to suggesting somebody to take antibiotics for schizophrenia, right? So It doesn't decrease the importance of antibiotics, it's an idiotic suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
So St. John's wort has been presented to us as an alternative to antidepressants that can be helpful in raw form, taking in a capsule form where they have basically a powder of this herbal thing for treatment of depression. It's not consistently shown to be effective for depression. So some studies show it is, some studies show it isn't, and I would not recommend people with major depressive disorder to use it to replace conventional medications. Just think about it. First of all, you would have to take it lifetime anyway, because it doesn't cure you.
Right.
Second of all, it's been already shown that even in people who report benefits from it, it still can cause side effects. So treating depression by yourself without a professional is actually kind of dangerous. It's not even kind of dangerous, it's just plain stupid dangerous.
Okay, and what if you're a, quote, healthy person?
Why take it? What is it going to do for you? It's not going to make you happier. Happiness is a product of eudaimonia, right?
Well, even people who aren't, like diagnosed with depression can have trouble, with happiness sometimes, right? I mean, everyone has bad moods.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're sick. And it doesn't mean they need to grab something right away.
Yeah, but so are you saying then that St. John's Wort is something that you would take when you're sick?
No, I would suggest that you don't take St. John's Wort randomly. So, first of all, do something, be somebody, go see somebody. If you don't want to see somebody who prescribes medication, see somebody who is a psychologist, who can help you to identify what kind of issues you have.
So wait, so when should you take St. John's Wort?
I don't know. It's very popular. People try to self-medicate with St. John's Wort for depression. And what I'm saying is that it's not such a simple proposition. Like, for example, let's take a look at what studies have been shown. So in a 12-week clinical trial with 73 participants that was conducted in 2011, neither St. John's Wort nor a standard antidepressant medication, citalopram, Celexa, actually had any effect. Then there was a 26-week clinical trial with 124 participants, and St. John's Wort and the standard antidepressant, sertraline, Zoloft, were utilized. And they also had a group that took placebo. So St. John's Wort, Zoloft, and placebo were similarly effective in treating major depression of moderate severity.
Interesting.
Right. In 2008 review of 29 international studies suggested that St. John's Wort may be better than a placebo. But other studies didn't support this idea.
So there's no consensus.
There is no consensus, and it's not better, neither is it worse than conventional antidepressants.
Interesting.
But the bottom line is that taking a substance that, let's say, is an antidepressant is not a good idea unless you need it. You understand? So you need to take into consideration what is going to happen. Like, for example, when somebody comes to somebody like me and says, Doc, I'm depressed, please suggest what medication I should take. We discuss many, many different issues, whether or not there is a possibility that it's going to cause weight gain, whether or not there is a possibility that it's going to have sexual side effects. We know what to look for, right? We also know that a substance has been used for many, many years, and there are what is called post-marketing studies, meaning not the studies just to sell it to people, but studies that have been done after it was already, in quotes, sold and bought, end of quote, and is being used consistently.
Right.
So St. John's Wort is one of the things that many claims have been made. People went for it because they don't want to take medication. But what is it good for if you don't need it, which remains to be seen for a lot of people? And if you do need an antidepressant, let's talk about what advantages and disadvantages does it have.
Right. Huh.
So for healthy people, it's not a nootropic. For healthy people, I would recommend to take as few substances as you possibly can.
Why wouldn't you want to take as many as you possibly can so you can maximize your brain? Eat your intelligence.
The brain is like a very protected entity that is inside of a hard shell, right? Our skull.
Right.
It's inside of the brain. Very few blood vessels come in and come out. And there is a blood-brain barrier, a formation inside of the brain, very complicated, that watches over what gets there. And before anything gets there, whatever you take per mouth gets processed by the rest of the body, including your liver and kidneys.
Right.
So why challenge the brain? If your brain needs something, it's going to be very obvious. But on the other hand, you want to help the brain along, to protect it. So if there is, for example, something like ashwagandha that's been used for thousands, at least hundreds of years, and is probably safe, you can take it. It's safe. But if there is something brand new, like if it's celery juice, of course, drink away. Not that is going to happen. But if it's a concoction of many different things, maybe it's not as safe. One of the probably most popular supplements right now is what is called SAMI. So it's capitals S as in Samuel, A as in Apple, M as in Mary, and then a little letter E.
So like same. Same.
SAME.
Love it.
Well, actually, in the United States, it's same. In Europe, they call it Edomet because it also can be abbreviated significantly shorter than S-adenosyl L-methionine, so that's SAMI. In Europe, they abbreviate it as S-adenosyl methionate, so then it becomes Edomet. It was discovered in the 1950s. It's a naturally occurring substance in our body, and it helps the majority of our cells to work very well. It's essential for their function, and people have been using it for many different things. Since we are talking about emotional issues, it's pretty much used for treatment of depression. Altogether, there have been about 40 studies conducted on SAMI, and most of them are demonstrating a positive outcome, meaning SAMI does help. The only problem is that methodology of most of the studies, similarly to most of the studies for other supplements, has certain flaws. For example, conducted for only a short period of time, a few weeks, or lacks a control group. You know, the standard is what is called double-blind placebo-controlled studies.
Yeah.
Double-blind meaning neither of the sides knows, meaning not the prescriber, not, let's say, a patient, know whether it's placebo or not. It's coded elsewhere, and the code is revealed only at the end of the study. So double-blind. And placebo-controlled means, naturally, that a group of people, randomly chosen, receives placebo, meaning a nothing pill.
Instead of the treatment.
Instead of the treatment.
To see which is more effective.
Right. Of course, nothing comes without a price. So it's not a perfect solution. First of all, it's been shown that it's dangerous to
SAMI?
for people who suffer from bipolar disorder. Well, if anybody knows anything about psychiatry, of course, bipolar disorder means that one side of the pole, one pole, is depression, but the other one is mania. So even when we prescribe conventional medications, we do not start from prescribing an antidepressant to anybody. An experienced psychiatrist or a psychologist who don't prescribe but treat a person want to make sure that the person who comes with complaints of depression does not also or have not had another side, mania or hypomania, meaning being a little bit manic. If you want to know what hypomania is, remember how it felt when your boyfriend proposed to you to become his wife and gave you a ring.
No, I don't remember because that hasn't happened yet.
Well, it will happen sooner or later. Or, for example, remember how it felt when you knew that you got accepted to a PhD program or received some kind of a reward, how you felt after a first kiss if you loved the person and it felt good. So stuff like that. On the top of the world, but you can come down from the top of the world. And many you can't. You keep climbing higher and higher.
I know that it's a negative thing, but it always sounded so good to me. I would love to just have a manic week. I feel like I would get so much done. It would be great.
I'm with you, and most of the clients that I see who are bipolar, of course, dream about having at least a couple of weeks of hypomania. But it is dangerous because then it's uncontrolled. Also, data on long-term safety of SEMI and its safety for use during pregnancy are very limited. To draw any conclusions, there is a theoretical reason for SEMI to be helpful. But I can tell you, as with many other supplements, the moment you stop taking it, its effect goes away. So it's not a cure.
What's the theoretical reason for why it would help with something like depression?
Well, because it promotes a synthesis of substances very important for brain function. So as in any other case, it can be effective.
Okay, so brain substances like serotonin?
Like serotonin and other important substances in the brain. I also have to warn people that also in theory, it's believed that SEMI may promote what is called pneumocystitis, which is an infection in people who are immunocompromised. Like, for example, if a person has HIV, taking SEMI might make it easier for an infection to settle in.
Right, so always read the possible side effects or consult a physician.
Well, I can tell you more, that although I'm a big fan of complementary and alternative medicine, I just want people to be aware that with any supplement that they take, they have to be aware of what's going to happen if they stop. And also, I would like to warn people, and it's not coming from me, from anybody who studied it, that taking SEMI together with other psychotropic medications, for example, antidepressants, might not be safe because we don't know what the outcome is going to be. Again, you don't want to flip, as we call it, into mania, or don't want to start developing side effects that you haven't had before.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to say sort of a final note, wrapping up the convo, about your general view of supplements and their efficacy?
Yes, so to give a couple of thoughts on how useful the supplements are in maintaining good mental health and emotional health and or treatment of various issues, I'd like to say that things that are sold to us as directly influencing serotonin synthesis or replacing antidepressants might or might not be as effective as conventional medications, and that still remains to be seen. But even if in your particular case they are, there needs to be a clear understanding that you are bound to take them for the duration of your life, because once you stop, they are not going to work.
Like they wouldn't work if you stopped and started again?
If you stop, they'll stop working. Whether they'll start working again or not, there is no data. But my point is that in this sense, they are not different at all from conventional medications that you also have to take all the time.
Right.
Certain things that we are told are very helpful to us might, in fact, be kind of dangerous. For example, a very, in quotes, benign melatonin is actually a naturally produced hormone in our brain. And if you start taking something from the outside, we call it exogenous, from the outside, so you start taking melatonin, your brain has no need to produce it anymore itself, because it constantly utilizes a negative feedback mechanism when it makes something and then looks around to see whether it made enough. And if it made enough of this thing, it will stop making it. So since you are bringing melatonin from the outside, there is no reason for the brain to make it.
So then if you stopped taking the supplement, then your brain might not be able to produce it as well as it did before?
Well, we don't know, but we also don't know whether the quality, the way our body perceives it, because melatonin works not only inside of the brain, outside also, is exactly the same. So bioavailability, meaning a capacity of our body to take advantage of the thing, of exogenous melatonin, the one that we bring from the outside, and our own could be different.
Is that the case for all supplements or specific ones?
Well, it's the case for everything we take, but melatonin is a very outrageous example because everybody, myself included, at some point of life does take it or did take it. I frequently take it when I come back from a long trip because it helps to reset my sleep. But recently I learned that actually my sleep pattern is reset anyway. So I would like to caution people against just randomly make a decision that supplements are definitely better than conventional medications. In some cases, they enhance the treatment, make it more effective.
Right.
In some cases, they might interfere. And in my practice, I had people who had to stop taking supplements and made a decision themselves because they were interfering pretty severely with whatever else they needed to take because there was no alternative to conventional medication. Like, for example, I cannot come up right now with any supplement helpful as a mood stabilizer for a person who suffers from bipolar disorder.
Yeah, that seems like a job for the big dogs.
Yeah, and also, again, like, for example, if somebody decides to take St. John's Wort for depression and it works, it does have side effects. And once you discontinue, depression might come back. We don't know. So in this sense, it's not better. So people say it's natural.
Right.
Well, it's not natural. Somebody took a plant and did something to it.
Right.
So I'm not saying that everybody should switch from conventional medications to supplements, and I'm not saying that everybody has to stop taking supplements. Supplements are very helpful. It would be better if the use of supplements was a result of in-depth discussion with a professional who knows enough about it and has experience in prescribing it, meaning suggesting to take it, not just after reading a few things on the internet.
I mean, I certainly don't make any decisions that way, but
But a lot of people do.
no, I'm kidding. I do.
Yeah.
So in general, I'm getting a lot of positive vibes about supplements.
Yes.
You know, there's, of course, like it might not always work. It might interfere with medication. It might not work if you're taking a bunch of them at once.
Right.
But they can help.
Yes, they can help. And
So it's not a waste of time to try it.
No. It's not a waste of time to try it, but I hate to sound like a broken record, which I will be sounding like this right now in a second. Consult with a professional. Make sure that a professional has all the important credentials to be a professional. Right?
Yeah, maybe.
And has experience.
Maybe talk to someone who's studied medicine rather than just reading Amazon reviews.
Yeah. So on this positive note, I guess I have to say, keep your brains open to supplements and continue listening to our amazing podcast, right?
Yes, goodbye, Earthlings.
Bye.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Brainstorm 9000. If you like us, love us, or marginally tolerate us, hey, go ahead and subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever the hell you listen to your podcasts.